Hello everyone. So in this video, I am gonna show you guys how to quickly disassemble and assemble a Ceado. This is their espresso grinder, model number E5P, which is the basic grinder with just a manual switch. When you put the portafilter in, and it just feeds. Sorry, I just bumped into my camera. It just feeds the grinder. The E6P or the E6P version 2, those features a electronic adjustment somewhere on the top over here. The method should be very similar, but just be really careful of the electronics integrated into the grinder mechanism. Okay, so this one is purely manual, so it's super easy to service. As you can see, I have all the parts over here. It looks like a lot of the parts, but it's very logical, very simple, and very easy to assemble and disassemble. I'll show you guys really quickly. So basically I disassembled my machine to just cleaning it for a little bit before I put everything back on there. So that is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna do the reverse order of the disassembly. I'm gonna assemble the machine from the disassembled stage, and then I'm gonna disassemble it again, so you guys have a much better understanding on what to expect when you disassemble the machine to clean. The machine is really well made. It's a beautiful single block aluminum design with a chamber that's cut out right over here, and which features of course the grinding mechanism and the grinder itself, the blades. So one of the blade is on the machine over here. This one is actually really easy to remove. All you need is 2 screwdrivers. So it's a Phillips or a flathead screw. So you can use either one. So what you're gonna do is, because if you don't use any screwdriver to secure it, when you try to turn this, as you can see, it's just gonna turn around. So what you're gonna do is find another piece of screwdriver, just shove it in there and kind of lock it, and then you can easily turn the screw and remove the blade for clean. That is the only part you need to remove on the machine itself, like inside this chamber that you can clean yourself. Other parts are not very serviceable, and you don't really need to service other parts. Okay, so that blade is the only part you need to take out, which you need to have 2 screws. So one to secure it on the side, and one to turn the actual thing that locks the blade. So with that out of the way, I am gonna put everything back on there. Okay, so let me see if the camera's aligned really well. Okay, here we go. So first thing first is I'm gonna reassemble this little portafilter holder, which is easiest part. So there's a little hole over here. Just need to align it to make sure the direction is correct and push it in here. And there are 2 screws over here securing it. So 2 fairly big stainless steel screws. All you have to do is put the screw back in there. And one thing you have to be really careful is, since it's a single block design, one piece of aluminum, make sure you don't strip any of the screw holes. If you strip it, you have to replace the whole thing. And so be really careful of that. Just be gentle. Anything you don't feel right, don't force it. It should be a fairly quick and painless job. So those are kind of at an angle. This way it's much easier to actually align it and test it. Seems like to be working fine. So the portafilter holder is done. And again, this is E5P. Doesn't have the automatic thing with a little clip over there to hold the portafilter. The next I'm gonna do is actually put the top blade onto the blade holding mechanism right over here. It's again secured by 3 screws. So all you have to do is put the 3 screws on here. And I cleaned those with warm water and soap, and I dried them properly. If you want to dry them quicker, use a hair dryer. Make sure they are really dry before you put it back in there. It's steel, so it's gonna rust if it sees a lot of moisture. Okay, so be really careful. And finding the 3 screws that's securing it, and I'm just gonna squeeze it back on there, and I'm gonna find a piece of cloth so it doesn't rotate around when I try to screw the thing on here. Let's see. And again, tighten it enough, but do not over tighten, because you're gonna strip the screw on the aluminum block, which is the worst thing you can do. Okay. So basically, I'm just gonna pilot the screws in here, make sure they're kind of aligned in position, and then at the very end, I am gonna tighten everything down. So again, it should be very easy to turn. Anything that you feel like have a resistance, it's probably not right. So loosen everything and redo. So I have 3 screws kind of in position. I prefer the flathead for this job, so I'm just gonna use the flathead and tighten everything down properly. And if your blade, check your blade. If your blade is worn, have lots of chipped areas, it's time for a new blade. But my blade seems to be in totally perfect shape, so there's no need to replace the blade. I just cleaned it. Again, now it's back onto the holding mechanism. And basically, for this one, all you have to do is just drop it in there, okay? It doesn't have any mechanism to secure it. But before you drop it in there though, very important is you need to have your washers put back on there. So this piece is really, really magical. You put it in here, and it actually blocks the coffee from going up here and damage the thread where the brass piece is holding on. So this is your adjustment mechanism, okay? That little washer is a magical washer that you put in there to hold the coffee from going into the upper chambers, which is really, really wonderful design. And this little springy washer goes on top of that washer. So you just basically drop it there. And the very last step is actually drop this piece on here. So what's interesting is the top piece actually does not move. It's fixed. What's moving is the bottom piece. So it moves and it grinds and pushes out the coffee through this little hole. This coffee grinder, again, it's a fairly professional model, but it's also great for home use. If you want a really quality grinder, this is a grinder to get. So once it locks into place, it doesn't rotate. The only thing rotates is the bottom piece. So keep that in mind. So as you can see, there is a little springy design. So that spring is to give it pressure. Okay guys, so next step with this putting there and kind of secured in position is to put the grind size adjustment mechanism back on there. For this step, you actually have to put the brass little locking ring on here, kind of just secured a little bit so it doesn't move around. And what you're gonna do next is really super simple. Let's see, find it. So you're just gonna align. I'm gonna leave it at the very edge where it's just kind of sitting over there, okay? So align the 2 o'clock and 9 o'clock position over here. So put the 2 on the right and put the 9 on the left, and kind of just align the hole on the brass holder. And then you can put the 2 small screws right next to the 2 and 9 mark. Okay, those 2 screws are the locking screws that locks this plastic piece with indication mark with the brass holder on the bottom. So the brass, this brass little thing actually controls the grind size with the help of the marker, of course, the exterior ring. There are 2 more screws over here on the top. So one close to the outside, that is to stop the thing from turning once it hits this little wall over here. Another one is a screw that actually locks into place, so once you have a grind dialed down, it doesn't move around. Okay, so this screw is optional. You don't really have to have that. You can just turn it all the way to the bottom. Okay, sorry. To turn it in, it's actually counterclockwise to get a fine grind. As you can see, the adjustment of the machine is actually fairly large, but this machine is really best suited for espresso grinds, for those fine grinds, really. Once you turn it all the way, actually I misaligned the thing, so always make sure when you fully turn it, the zero indication mark kind of sits over here. So basically all I have to do is actually just reverse the ring really quick. If you find out that the zero is not aligned somewhere here, once you fully turn the dial in, just reverse the order. So it gives you a better clear indication on your grind size. Okay, so basically I'm just turning it 180 degrees. And because the zero is over there once it's fully locked, but when you set it to zero, it's actually the lowest setting that this machine can go. Okay, so just quickly showing you guys my setup over here. And again, as you can see, once you do it once, it's really easy to get everything back on there like super quick. Oh, the wrong hole, obviously. So right over here. So 2 o'clock and 9 o'clock is your locking thing for the plastic ring to the adjustment mechanism. So that 2 screws I showed you, this one goes right next to 2 o'clock. This actually locks your, so if I found a setting that I really like over here, maybe at number 3, I just rotate this all the way to the bottom, and it shouldn't turn once you lock it in place. Okay, once you loosen it, you're able to turn it again. And the very last screw I showed you guys is the blocking screw from the thing moving too much out, from moving to a too coarse of a setting. So again, it's optional, because if you put it in here, I'll show you really quick. Once it hits over in the front, it doesn't move anymore. See, it locks it over here. There is option to get more coarse grind if you're doing, a pouring coffee or your Americanos, you want, or your French press, you want a coarse grind, move the screw and turn it one more time. That's how you get more coarse grind. But for me, for espresso, the setting will always be reset at 0, and I'm gonna be using, most of my available range is from, let's see, 0 to 5, and that is for my espresso. Again, if you guys make other coffees, remove the screw and fine-tune your grind. Okay, all right, so here we go. Just test it one more time. This is the 0, the finest grind, goes all the way 1, 2, 3, 4, and it's gonna stop at 4. So that is my grind over here. Again, if I dialed in and it's not good, I can always remove the screw and go one more turn clockwise to get a slightly more coarse grind. That is done. So setting it at 0, and a couple more things to put back. This little piece, stainless steel piece, is sitting over here to prevent the coffee from flying out. It's a very soft stainless steel piece that you basically just put it in here. Okay. And kind of slightly tighten it. You don't have to tighten it too much. We're almost done here. So those last screws are what is used to secure the I don't know how to call it, this tube. So your espresso is going to come out from here. Okay. All right, so the top 2 screws are actually the wide and narrow one over here. Actually, looks like I have to remove the top to be able to put the feeder in. So I'm just going to remove the top really quick. Again, to remove the top, you have to have the outer screw out over here. The other screws doesn't really matter that much, because It's just connecting to that brass piece on the inside. So remember, when you disassemble, once you have this removed, remove this next, and when you put it back on, make sure to put this in there first, okay? Again, it's directly bolting to the aluminum piece, so make sure you don't strip it. And the very last step is securing this little piece, the outer piece over here. Just slide it in here, and it should fit right into the place. And it's held by 2 long screws over here. So basically, remove the, put the long screw back in there. And be really careful not to strip any of those screws. You don't have to use a lot of force to secure them, okay? They should be secured fairly good, just with a small amount of pressure once you fully lock it in here. Okay, so double check, and it looks good. So the very, very last step, of course, getting this little ring back on top. You screw it in counterclockwise, but make sure you align it properly. Do not strip the threads. Again, very important for this machine. Do not strip the threads. One thread stripped, you have to replace the whole block, which I would assume is fairly expensive to do so. And that's pretty much about it. This is the whole assembly part. Next, I'm not gonna say much stuff. I'm just gonna do a whole disassembly really quick to show you guys how easy it is to service this machine, okay? So let me get the camera angle good, and then we should start. Okay. So that is a quick, basic disassembly steps. And next, again, I'm gonna quickly put everything together and just show you guys what's going on. There you go. That's it. Any questions, comments? Feel free to ask me in the comment section down below. This is a great grinder. Super easy to service. Very well built, single aluminum block design. So extremely quality grinder with, I think, a over 60 millimeter burr that grinds stuff super quick and quiet. Okay. Thank you so much for watching. Questions, comments, again, ask me down below, and I'll see you in my next video. Take care. Bye-bye.